Have Tre Lovell from the Lovell law firm. Tre, thank you so much for joining us. You actually have been with us on Live Now before, talking about the civil case regarding Donald Trump. This was back in May, and today, similar situation. This case that I want to talk about specifically, it's a civil case. So Kevin Spacey, acquitted in London, in New York. But still, back in May of 2022, I believe it was, an arbitrator said that Spacey and his production companies, they still had to pay out to Netflix $30 million. That's after other allegations from members of staff of the House of Cards said that he also partook in sexual misconduct there. And so this isn't really over for Kevin. So can we get into that? Does the fact that he was acquitted by all of these charges have anything to do with his impact on the case with Netflix?
No, it really doesn't. And thanks for having me, first of all. It really doesn't. That case was adjudicated in arbitration. There was a final rendering by the arbitrator, and it became a judgment, so to speak. So that case is done with. And really wouldn't have any impact on what's happened now. But I think there's a big distinction between that case and what's happened recently. Back, when that all went down with the House of Cards and Netflix, that was kind of the height of the Me Too movement. And employers were quick to fire. Employers were scared, about these allegations. And he may, in some respects, have been a victim of that. So back then it was just a different mindset. But I think what's happened today, and then what happened with the civil case with Anthony Rapp, it's just he needed this in order to get back to Hollywood. Had he lost today, and there would have been a conviction, aside from any jail time, his career would have been over. This is a do or die situation. But now having disproven more or less, or at least found not guilty of these allegations, he's in a position to go back to work. And I think producers are going to take a chance. I think producers are going to feel more confident. He's an excellent actor. He still has a big audience out there. There's a lot of work for him. Now that he's got this behind him, I think he may have a prosperous career.
So he might be able to go back to work in Hollywood, but I can imagine that this is really stinging Spacey, the fact that he has been ordered to pay so much money to Netflix. Is there any way that, because of the fact he was acquitted, he could almost bring this case back up or even countersuit Netflix, let's say? I mean, this is still taking a big hit on him and his character.
No, he really can't, because, back then was his opportunity to fight the claims. He had his day in court, so to speak. He put on witnesses. They made their arguments. He had counsel. And an arbitrator just happened to find against him. And they were different people that were accusing him. They were people on the set of the show, House of Cards, a different time period. There's no overlap with those who were involved in the most recent proceedings and with Anthony Rapp. So they're really two different things, and that's over, so to speak. In large part, it's kind of a collection issue. I mean, sometimes he may be able to negotiate it down or resolve it. But what's happened recently is not going to impact that at all, because it's just separate circumstances. He had his day in court. That was what was found back then. So he kind of has to live with that. But I think with memories fade, and what's happened most recently is what's going to, stick in minds most.
So let's talk about next steps for Spacey. So he has been telling a few publications, actually, that producers can't wait to work with him as soon as he's been acquitted of all these charges. But this is specific to London and the UK. When he goes now to try to make his name into Hollywood, what are the next steps, sort of, and even legally, to make sure that he does this in the safest way possible to just kind of save face after this whole situation?
Well, one of the barriers that was preventing him from working were these charges, and with the potential that he would have been found guilty. Whenever there's a production, there's insurance involved, and you're insuring the actors and making sure that they're acting correctly, and that would have been a risk as well because of what had happened. And so those are what was preventing him from working. But now that this is behind him, and he's been acquitted, I think producers are going to take a chance. Certainly independent producers, the big studios may not jump on board at first, but I think he will slowly crawl his way back with some independent productions, getting his work out there, getting his name out there. And eventually when the work comes, he'll start to get in the public eye again. And then he'll catch, opportunities, with the bigger studios. It's kind of like the Mel Gibson thing. I mean, for a while there, what he did, he was ostracized, couldn't get work, but eventually memories fade, and he got back into Hollywood. And that's the thing. People kind of forget. They remember what they just saw. They remember what's happened recently, and I think that's going to really come to his benefit.
Tre, can you explain to us a little bit why this situation with Netflix was considered a civil case and brought forward to an arbitrator versus his criminal case and the sexual allegations from other men?
Sure. So the arbitration emanated from claims while he was on set for House of Cards that he was sexually harassing employees, acting improperly, and provision in his agreement that prevented him from doing that. You have a morals clause. You also have a conduct clause where you have to act a certain way. And when he was breaching that, that constitutes grounds to have terminated him. Now he has a written contract, and thus the parties can agree that in the event of a dispute, that they want to arbitrate as opposed to filing a lawsuit in the public. And so that's what happened here. There was an arbitration provision clause that required any disputes that they had would be arbitrated. Those are heavily enforced in nearly all cases. And so he was forced to go through the arbitration process with an arbitrator, which is not unusual in the entertainment industry. There's so many claims and issues that we never hear about that are going on, but they're going on in the privacy of an arbitration and before an arbitrator. So that emanated from a contractual arrangement they had when he was his production companies were co-producing the show, and then he was acting in it. So he didn't really have a choice. And it probably served to his advantage to not have a very public rendering of evidence, of all these allegations that they were having about his sexual harassment, things like that. So it probably inured to his benefit to keep it quiet. But that's what formed, and that was why those proceedings were before an arbitration and not open court.
Tre, we appreciate you being here. I do have just one more question, because you do feel that he'll be able to make a comeback. As time goes on, he'll be able to, bounce back from this entire ordeal, especially after these big wins today. Do you ever think that he would return to work with Netflix? Has there ever been a situation where an actor working with a production company has gone through this whole process and still gone back to work with that production company?
I would never say never. I mean, I think that, initially, they're going to take a step back. But it's about money. And once the public starts to accept him, once he's in some of these other movies, he's getting talked about, he's doing interviews, people are more interested in his work in the movie or TV show as opposed to, these allegations that passed. Netflix and Warner Brothers and other studios are going to feel more comfortable engaging him. It's kind of like they're going to kind of see what the groundwork is, let other people bring him into society and get his name out there. And then when it's safe, I have no doubt that they will come back and work with them.
Tre Lovell, always great to have you here on LiveNOW from Fox. Thank you so much for breaking it down for us. Big win for Kevin Spacey today, but still remains to be seen. And hopefully by having his name cleared by these juries, he can bounce back. But thank you, and we welcome you back anytime.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.